Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this urgent live stream that I've called. And the topic tonight is Eskom and rolling blackouts. And there's a very specific reason why I've called this live stream. This live stream is being recorded. It'll be loaded onto YouTube for members to watch. So if you need to leave during this meeting, don't fear. You can come back at any time during this live Zoom. I don't want this to carry on for longer than an hour, so it shouldn't take us beyond 8 o'clock. And I will make a couple of statements now, and then hopefully you will ask me important questions around what you are experiencing and maybe what you've seen out in the media, and I will clarify them for you where I can. Please keep your microphones muted so that it doesn't interfere with this Zoom meeting. So thank you very much to all of you that have joined. There's over 70 people that have joined now. Probably soon they'll be close on 80 and maybe more. So thank you for offering up your Monday evening. What we will be discussing tonight is extremely important, not just for your future, but for the future of this country. And there's one thing I want to explain to you with regards to Eskom. Eskom needs generation capacity. Eskom hasn't got enough generation capacity at the moment that is running. So Eskom has double the generation capacity it needs to meet current demand. The demand is lower than it's ever been. Let me make that clear. Eskom's demand is the lowest it's been in a very long time. When I was a licensed reactor operator in the control room, the demand would peak at 36,000 megawatts. And Eskom had an installed capacity of about 40,000 megawatts at the time. That has increased now to way over 40,000 megawatts. But Eskom had a very good availability factor. In other words, the percentage of plant available versus the demand was really high. It was typically way above 80%, often above 90%. And specific plants would be shut down for routine maintenance, and that would be done on a rotational basis. Currently, that is completely reversed. We are often sitting with planned maintenance of just over 4,000 megawatt and breakdowns at over 16,000 megawatts. That's over 20,000 megawatts that is unavailable to us. So that is around 40% of the generation capacity of Eskom. And this will just get worse. It cannot improve as long as you have old stations supplying the grid and as long as you have erratic renewables coming into the Eskom grid. So this tonight, I don't want to attack renewables. I don't want to attack coal. I don't want to attack nuclear. You can do that and I will answer your questions. What I want to say is that Andre de Ruyter, as the CEO of Eskom now, has been given instructions from government to do one simple thing: build billions of rands worth of power lines all over the country to places where they want to build future generating capacity, renewable generating capacity. If you remained within a large baseload fleet capacity, that would not be necessary. Let me make that plain and simple. We are going to be spending money, lots of money, and this is not the Ruyter that's decided this. He's been told to do this, on billions of rands worth of transmission lines so that it can reach solar areas as well as wind generation areas. And you need to think about that tactic, how that has worked out in many other places in the world, how much that has cost those countries. So I'm not going to attack any type of energy. I'm going to lay out the facts in front of you plainly and simply, not what the mainstream media with maybe a leaning agenda is trying to push to you. I'm going to tell you how it is. And at the moment, we're sitting with a serious situation where we have plant that is getting old within Eskom, a lot of plant that's getting old, with Medupi and Kusile being the newest power stations with issues. And this is broad public knowledge. So I'm just giving you information that is known to the public, and I'm putting it in context for you. There's many things I can speak of that I cannot. I have non-disclosure agreements. I have secrecy agreements that I sign. So I cannot speak about all the detail. There's many things that have been made public through people that leak information. And this is sad because the context is always wrong. The person that wants to leak information is typically not a technical person. Most technical people that are skilled in what they are doing won't leak things to the media. So you get snitches that want to get some kicks somewhere, or they have someone maybe paying them a bribe to put information out completely out of context to the media. And one such an article was put out today again, completely farcical, absolutely not true with regards to context. And these things are seriously problematic. The next thing I want to say is that we are in serious trouble with regards to power generation. And added to that, we need to do, as Eskom, need to do load shedding to mitigate the grid not blacking out. If you do not perform load shedding, we will either have blackouts in vast areas or districts, or a countrywide blackout. And that is certainly something no one wants. The people at Zimmerpan at National Control won't allow that to happen. They are very well trained in load shedding large chunks of the country if they have to maintain and keep the grid stable. Okay, and you need power lines to do that. All generating stations on the national grid is interconnected. They are synchronized to each other. They are working together. And you want that to remain as stable as possible. What we are doing now is we're investing in technologies that makes it more unstable. Unless you spend more money on more of those technologies and you spend more money on storage capacity and then spend billions on the power lines to actually reach those capacities. Now, these aren't things that they will tell people, but you see Andre de Ruyter the other day when they had that forum with News 24, made it clear that Eskom has to build billions of rands, and he said how many billions it would cost. You could build power stations with that money to run power lines. He didn't discredit this. He didn't say it's a bad move. He just said that this is what Eskom will have to do. And he has made it clear that Eskom gets its mandate from government, that Eskom can't just decide what is right for what it believes it needs to do anymore. And this is something that Andre has made clear. So you have to look at what he is saying, how he is saying it, and it's clear that he is at this stage with people blaming him and saying that he must step down. He's starting to lay out the facts more meticulously, and that is a good thing. What he is not doing is picking sides, and in his position, that's a very difficult thing to do. I want you to understand the facts he's laying out so that you can decide what you want to push for, because at the end of the day, we are the government. We make decisions at the end of the day, even this broken political system we have, to decide who leads us. And we can campaign for something, we can promote something, and we absolutely should if we believe in it. So I'm not going to speak for much longer, except to tell you that I've been asking people for a long time to prepare for times where you don't have electricity as an energy form. Make sure that you have other energy forms, like gas, for instance. And many people have taken that up, seriously and prepared themselves, and they will reap the benefits now. It cannot get better in the short term. When Andre de Ruyter was asked how long before load shedding ends, he was perfectly correct in not giving an answer. He was perfectly correct in saying that the government is telling us to do X, Y, Z. This is what we are doing. And that it will take time. So very subtly, you will see that it's been made clear that there is an agenda being rolled out from a political side, not from what Eskom is asking for, not from what Eskom is saying needs to happen. And I need you to understand that at this stage, Eskom doesn't make the decisions with regards to what is happening. Those narratives are driven from politicians that are influenced by international entities. I need to make that clear. And from that base, point, I will now start answering your questions, your technical questions. So hopefully there will be many hands up so that I can answer the very important questions that you should be asking me right now. So over to you. Any questions? Okay, we have absolutely no questions. Looks like this is going to be quick. This is going to be over in no time. Okay, Jacques.
Yeah, good evening, Des. Thanks. My question is, how do we roll the apple cart on this one? And what do we do to stop it, if I can put it like that?
To stop what, Jacques? We need to be specific.
To try and stop this whole green energy. Sorry, I came in a little late. To stop this whole thing with all the wind and solar and everything. And basically turn it, because we're going to be stuffed anyway on time, you know, and then they can just as well go and build new power stations. You know, is it not going to be at the same time? So how do we stop?
I believe it will be better, yes, to build new baseload power station generating capacity. Absolutely, Gwedimantashe agrees with that. I might not agree with everything Gwedimantashe says, but he's correct on that. From a technical perspective, having worked in the control room, having synchronized generators, having seen the effects of massive grid swings on the national grid, I can speak from experience, something that certainly most of the CEOs in Eskom, that Eskom's had, have never experienced. They haven't been there when the chips are down to actually see what happens to the grid. It's easy for someone at Megawatt Park to be influenced by politicians, and I understand it. That is how it works now. It didn't work that way back in the day. The government trusted senior engineers that have worked their way up through Eskom's ranks to make decisions. That is not the case now, because now we have international agendas that filters through to South Africa. Our politicians have signed international agreements, and that is what's being put out. So all we can do is change the political system, change the political landscape to affect that. There's no other way. So Jacques, changing the political landscape, that's the answer to that.
Okay, thank you. Because we've got the critical mass. And another question is to use, like we use the platforms against them that they use. So to hammer this, literally to make everybody, even the people that is not on platforms, not on YouTube, to, like, for instance, in layman's terms, easy videos. Like, let's say, for instance, the type of videos you make, but for like Eskom for Dummies, let's call it that. So that everybody can share this far and wide. So people can wake up, because most people don't know.
Okay, I have made videos on this channel. They are there under Eskom. Those are the videos I made before I became 00 Des. They are detailed. They explain things meticulously. Go and share those videos. Take snippets out of those if you want to, because they can't be taken out of context, those videos specifically, because they're technical in nature. So go onto the playlist section and find those videos and share those with people. I don't have to go and remake them. They are there on this channel. This channel now is probably over 1,200 videos that I've created in a very short space of time. So use those videos, use that content, go to that playlist section, and if you want to just make a small snippet, do, but make sure that it is a piece of context that's explained properly. It shouldn't be something to drive your narrative. This is not about narratives. This is a very real problem that we are facing, okay?
Yes.
And even if people believe at this stage that wind and solar power will save us, it cannot. It's not possible for it to do it. You know, and I'm not saying that those technologies shouldn't be used. I'm just saying that if that is a global narrative and a political narrative, then do it in a way which doesn't influence the grid stability, and do it in a way that that the Eskom distribution network can cope with. And at this stage, I think they will be rolling out things at a pace that's going to make that difficult. If you put battery backup in place, the cost just becomes astronomical. So the moment you say, but solar PV is cheap, no, add in the price of the batteries, add in the price of running the network, the transmission lines, the 400 kV lines or the 132 kilovolt lines, all the way to there. Add all of that cost in, because Eskom has to charge you for that. Okay, then you see the real price. That's very important. So a lot of people take things out of context when it comes to that. You know, if they build a nuclear power station up the west coast and one up the east coast, they have chosen sites where there's already power lines. You don't have to go and construct hundreds of kilometers of power lines to build those stations there, and you can have cheap baseload. The question you have to ask is, can we man those stations? Can we manage them properly? Can we do proper oversight over them? Those are all questions that you need to ask. So that is something that can stabilize the grid. At the moment, the attack, for instance, on Koeberg is massive in the media. And the information they're putting out there, it's clear that there's a massive smear campaign. Because when we had 16,000 megawatts unavailable, they singled out Koeberg Unit 2, which supplies 920 of that 16,000 megawatts. How can that be okay? How is that rational? Do you understand? So
yes,
we need to start looking at the agendas being driven, and there's definitely fights happening within the African National Congress. They are open fights. And, you know, on the one side, you have Cyril Ramaphosa, our president, with a brother-in-law that's trying to push an agenda. And then you have Gweri Mantashe and his supporters that is pushing a different agenda. And yet it becomes very complicated within the ruling party. And I don't want to speak party politics now, because this is beyond party politics. People, we are going to be in serious, serious trouble if we don't get this right. We need to mitigate what is happening now. So what that means is we need to make it less of a crisis. And at the moment, it can only get worse as we go along. When you put up a wind turbine that's 5 megawatts, you need at least 5 others. You need 6 to have them run at some stage with the availability factor to actually give you a baseload supply. And you need to connect it to batteries to make that viable. So this is, people need to understand that if that is what they want, what will the consequences be? It's going to cost a fortune. If that is what you want, that is fine. We can make this country coal-free, nuclear-free. We can just have wind and solar. It's absolutely possible. Okay. You are going to pay probably 20 times what you are paying for electricity right now if we have to implement that. So if tomorrow, if we have to go and just roll out solar, I'm talking for the large grid. I'm not talking for your house. It's a completely different set of circumstances. But if you have to just make South Africa rely on solar, and we absolutely can. We have the land, we can put up the solar panels, and we can run this entire country just off solar. If we run all the power lines there, all that will happen is people will literally move to different places. They will move to places where it's cheaper to get electricity, where they can get work, etc. And the thing is, initially, when you build solar power stations, there's a lot of work to be done. But once you're done with it, there's nothing. There's very little. So when they say we're going to create 30,000 or 40,000 jobs, it is not a true reflection of what actually happens. And with each of these projects, if you go to the local communities, they would have promised X, Y, Z. And normally they have to build a library, or they have to build a gym, or they have to build a nice park or a nice statue somewhere as part of the project to kind of placate the people. I'm laying it out as it is, okay? Yes, and the people fall for this initially. But when the project's done, they're saying, but where's the jobs that you were supposed to create? Other people came in for most of that work. Okay, most of the products came from overseas, wasn't manufactured in South Africa. So you have to look at that. And then you have to look at how many megawatts are you putting out for the amount of effort you've just put in. So that's my 2 cents worth. So we need to ask all these questions. I'm not saying what power source we should use, okay? I am giving you the consequences of the future plans right now. And it's a crisis. Because politicians are going to make decisions now, and we are going to be stuck with things that's going to put us in the same situation as many places in the US where they have rolling blackouts in many counties right now. The same with the UK, the same with Germany and all these other places. The world is in an energy crisis. It's not just a South African problem. In fact, we're probably dealing with it the best out of the lot. The people have learned to cope. Okay, let's move on to other questions.
Can I ask one more thing? Sorry, last thing.
Okay.
So I think, okay, for personally, I think most people will agree, and we all understand, you know, sorry, my dog threw my phone out, man. So yeah, what I'm saying is just if you can reach 40 million people, you know, because we've got the critical mass. That's what I'm trying to say, and you can get, let's say, for instance, 40 million people, and they understand the consequences of what will happen. Then the hardigheid will kick in, and to try and stop it.
Yeah, I fear, Jacques, I fear that many people will just lap up what politicians say. Most people are consumerists, so they're just consuming. As long as they get products to consume and they're earning a salary, they're happy. As long as they're earning fiat currency, it will be too late by that time. The thing is, once we've gone down that road, this country will never recover. It won't recover. There's no ways that we can foot that bill. At the moment, we are losing, our biggest taxpayers are leaving the country. Okay, so you're getting a smaller tax base, that's a compliant tax base, having to foot the bill for a welfare state. Because we are a welfare state, there's many people dependent on handouts at this stage, and that is how the ruling party buys votes, etc. And it's no different with any other party in parliament. You know, the people buy votes and loyalty with salaries, etc. Seats in parliaments, councils. So this is a political issue that needs to be addressed. I don't want to focus on that right now. Maybe we can focus at the end of the Zoom on that specifically. I want to get into the technical side because I think a lot of people have technical questions. So Jacques, I'll touch on that in the end and sum up what we can actually do about this, because that's important. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Paul.
Hi, Des. A little bit, when you started, you mentioned something about a newspaper article.
Yes.
And I did read something today where it said something about a steam generator that fell, and this is basically the cause of like projected code red.
Okay, that's not, but that's not true. So the first thing is that happened months ago. Okay, I would have never spoken about that before if it wasn't in the public eye. It should have never been in the public eye. I'm actually glad that it's out for one simple reason. Now you can see that Framatome was to blame for the situation we find ourselves in, not Koeberg, okay? Because of this event, it affected everything. And this was kept hush-hush by the media until now, because now it's sensation for them to say that this is now going to cause a crisis. 1,800 megawatts from Koeberg is important. That's 2 levels of load shedding. But we have 16,000 megawatts worth of unavailable generating capacity due to breakdowns. Why is the focus on Koeberg? Have you ever asked yourself why? Because it's sensational. Okay, that is why. So Koeberg is better run than any other power station in this entire flippin' country. Guaranteed. The people there are better trained. They are more experienced. They have a better culture, a work culture, than any other industry in this country. So it's a unique niche group of people. When Framatome goes, and they didn't drop the steam generator, the company that manufactured it for them during rigging dropped it. It fell 0.5 meter. Eskom had nothing to do with it. Koeberg had nothing to do with it. We can't be blamed for that. And yet, you have a newspaper headline, okay? Not a newspaper, a News 24 headline that says Eskom scrambles to say 5 billion Koeberg project after generator is dropped in China. This is not affecting the steam generator replacement at all, because it's been resolved a long time ago. So the fact that it's in the news now is really pathetic, because it's something that's been mitigated in last year already, early in last year. Okay, read between the lines. So this is sensation. It's nothing else.
Okay, and then regarding choices on generation capacity, and Boris Johnson stated clearly last week, in that other video you sent out, that we should be going nuclear because they've already done the exercise. Having closed down the other generating capacities, and now they're sitting in a position where it's too late to have put nuclear in like they should have in the beginning.
Listen, I'm going to be plain and simple about this. Nuclear is the best solution at the moment for anywhere in the world where nuclear can actually be run. If you have the manpower, you can import manpower to run a nuclear power station. Okay, you can import a regulator to run a nuclear power station, but you need either enough water in the country or the ocean with cool enough water to be able to cool the reactors and run all the auxiliary systems. So those are requirements. You also need a suitable site. Okay, South Africa has plenty of that. Plenty. At Koeberg, we can build more units because the site was licensed for 6 units. It was constructed for that. You already have everything there. So they can just go and build another twin pack. And they absolutely should. Because even although we have higher voltage power lines down to Cape Town, okay, than we had before. We just had the 400 kV before. Now we have over 700 kV lines coming down to Cape Town. Koeberg was an anchor down here. Still is an anchor. Okay, and it stabilizes the grid here. Imagine us transferring power all the way from Mpumalanga and those areas down to here. The whiplash on the grid when you have problems up there. What you end up doing to the equipment. So when you go past Muldersvlei and all these substations, you'll see what we call reactor units, induction units, capacitive units that actually balance the load on the grid all the time. That's very important. Often you see street lights on and people say, but why is Eskom burning the street lights? What they don't know is that you need inductive capacity. At that moment, you need lights to be on. And that's one way that Eskom can balance the load on the grid. So if you don't have a balanced grid, you're sitting with many other problems, and those technical details will be too complicated for me to explain to the broad public out there. And I don't think it's fair on them to go into megavars and all that type of thing. But just know that running a grid is not a Mickey Mouse undertaking. When the mayor of Cape Town says, we can just cut ourselves off of Eskom, and then he announces some trash plant power station they're going to build that puts out 3 megawatts. And he says, but that's a start. It's a joke. Don't take the people for a ride like that. Cape Town is consuming over 2,000 megawatts, close on 3,000 in peaks. Don't come and dinky toy with 3 megawatts and saying you're becoming independent of Eskom. Now they're saying over time, because I've ripped them to shreds on radio interviews. Because I know I'm right. There's nothing Jordan can do about the fact that I'm right. Because he knows me. There's nothing he can do. He's talking utter rubbish, he's politicking, and people are falling for it. And I will do anything to make the public know that they are talking nonsense. You cannot just walk off the Eskom grid. We don't have enough places here to put up wind turbines and solar panels and whatnot to run this metro. We don't. The other thing you need to know is Koeberg doesn't supply the metro. It supplies into the national grid. All the generators supply into one grid. And from there, the power is distributed. The stability of the grid depends on how much generation capacity is in any given area and how many lines are connected to each other. How long are they? How thick are the cables? What's the voltage involved? How much stability capacity do you have at substations along the way? Those are all factors. So it's running a grid is very complex. And this is why other places in the world are chopping off right now. They are battling because these people aren't as versed as we are in keeping a grid stable, because we've been doing it now heavily since 2002. We started with load shedding, not in 2006. We started load shedding Mosul and many of these other smelters in 2002 already.
Wow.
Because it was in the National Control Logbook. The populace didn't know about it because the homes of people weren't load shed. They load shed industry first. Because these people had cheap power purchase agreements with Eskom. And in that agreement, it says that if you purchase power from us, we load shed you first, you're going to get it at a premium. So, lo and behold, I would see in the National Control Logbook there, that smelter's gone, that smelter's gone, they've cut them. And they would just cut them off. And the public was none the wiser that the crisis had already started. You know, the white paper came out in 1998, which said we need to build new generating capacity. What is the writer saying now? Finally, he's saying we need to build new generating capacity. At the same time that he's saying we need to build new generating capacity, you have this political ball coming in from the side saying renewable, renewable, renewable. And I'm saying people need to understand what that means. It's absolutely possible. We can go and flatten the whole Karoo and put solar panels everywhere. And we can supply the rest of Africa if we want. I don't know if you're going to enjoy that bill.
Oh, seriously doubted.
I don't know if I answered your question.
No, absolutely. I've just got one last thing, because you said if we've noticed things going on around us. We're from Durban, the Bluff specifically, and we've had recently like a substation or something that feeds other substations. I don't know exactly what the terms are, but like it was sabotaged, and it affected other, like about 100 substations from that one sabotage act. So I don't know if other people are experiencing the same thing in the areas where they live. It's
happening countrywide. So even in Cape Town, there's areas affected now that no one thought would be affected. Paul, Stellenbosch, Somerset West, everywhere, there's big substations being affected. So people are going into big substations, and they are literally cutting copper out of huge transformers. I mean, it's almost unthinkable. They have to first tap out all the oil. It's a massive undertaking. These people aren't messing around. So it all looks like legitimate syndicates that are just stealing from Eskom. It is sabotage, people. Eskom is being sabotaged. I said clearly when I started my tour that there's 3 things that will destabilize the country. And that will actively be pursued. And that is the Zulu Kingdom, Eskom, and secession. Those 3 things. Mark my words, it'll happen like that, like clockwork. Because I know the plan. And I'll do everything to stop it. And mitigate it. We won't be able to stop everything, especially with regards to Eskom. I can't be everywhere in the country. And all the good people that want to do good work can't be everywhere either. They are trying the best they can where they're at. And it's not easy.
Okay, thanks, Des. That's it for me.
Okay. Okay, next. Paul. Okay, your hand's down now. Okay, Hardy, hi.
Hi, Des. Yeah, quick question. So
I like the picture.
I need to get a new one. It's a little bit older. If we can help you, I don't know if I want to use the term viral, but if we can share this, it's incredibly useful to hear you quote numbers like, you know, Cape Town uses 3,000 megawatts. but it'll be, you know, each of us have an audience on Facebook that we can post things to and make people aware. I mean, we have to do something, right? We can't just sit back and hope it's going to fix itself.
Yeah.
So if we can make a playlist, for instance, of all your videos, because it's intimidating to view 1,000 videos that you've made or go and look for them, you know, where we can direct people to. And if each of us reach a few people, it's going to, well, what else are we going to do to make a difference? We can't just leave.
Well, the playlist is already there, like I've said.
Yeah.
I will add this Zoom. I will make available for members, and then later I will make it available to the public. That was always my intention, because everyone needs to hear this. It's the members that can ask questions in the Zoom, but my intention was always for everyone to see this. This is so important. We need as many people as possible to become a part or decide what they want in their future. And the thing is, it's fine for people to challenge me, because they're going to lose. You know, I know the people in the industry that know what they're doing, because I've worked with them. And it doesn't mean that those people are against solar or wind installations. They believe it needs to be done the right way. And they also believe that it needs to be cost effective. Now, why are most of these renewable companies actually pulling out now? They're pulling out because they can't come in at the prices anymore. You see, now that Eskom's being split into 3, and this is important to understand, they are going to compete with Eskom for supplying power, where before Eskom was forced to buy their electricity and then sell it to you, the public. And then Eskom gets the rap for the expensive solar. Eskom gets a rap for the expensive wind. It's not fair. It's wrong. And I'm sure the writer must be pulling his hair out of his head now, because he has clearly shifted from the day he became CEO to where he is now. The moment people wanted to throw him under the bus, he certainly changed what he is saying. And most people won't understand how he's actually saying what the problem is. He's actually laying it out meticulously. And Adrian Masson, interviewing him, has no cooking clue, because he hasn't got the technical know-how. And yet they'll have people writing articles about the Koeberg generator when it's a steam generator, as if it's a crisis now when it's been dealt with more than a year ago. So that is how pathetic our journalists are at this stage. We don't have investigative journalists. If journalists could tell the truth, it would help. So I've had people ask me to come on to Cape Talk a couple of times to speak to the people of Cape Town. I've taken on the DA's Shadow Minister of Energy and ripped him to shreds, because he doesn't know how to answer me, because he's not an expert. This is the problem we're sitting with, and we need more of that. Now, I never go to the media. They approach me, and they ask me to explain things to them in layman's terms. And it's not a popular message that I give, because there is no right or wrong answer. There are answers with consequences. You know, I have written articles in the past where I've said, if the future generations don't want nuclear, you can't build nuclear. But then they need to understand what the consequences are of that. And the politicians mustn't lie to them about the consequences. And this is what's happened in the UK, and this is why Boris Johnson gave that speech. In that speech, he said a whole lot of other things that just annoyed the living daylights out of me. But the points that he made on nuclear were profound. It was a massive shift. It was like a clarion call, where he said, we dropped the ball. We messed this up. Politics have become so mainstream that people forget that people with skills and knowledge that aren't on social media, that aren't on Facebook, aren't on YouTube, and so on, actually know what they're doing, can make decisions behind the scenes, and run a business such as Eskom or any other company out there. All the politicians have to say is, we want so many megawatts by this time, we want this as cheap as possible. And there's people that are very qualified to do studies to see what would be the best in the long run. They can even ask the politicians, listen here, do you want a Rolls Royce or do you want a little car that you can wrap around a lamp pole? Which one do you want? We can build thousands of wraparound wind turbines if we want, with leading edges that are falling apart, that need massive amounts of maintenance, or solar panels that's filling warehouses and the rugby stadiums full in Australia right now that are bust. No one knows what to do with it. And these are things you need to think about. I made a video on this where I'm not a proponent for anything, where I show the negative side of all energy generation. And where I said there's no such thing as clean, green, and renewable in the energy game. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
At all. So
I have no faith in the system, but I mean, if we just had to figure out what we can do, like I'm using a stupid example.
Speak to your neighbors, speak to your friends.
And also write letters to newspapers, to Alan Wind, whatever.
Absolutely. If a newspaper allows you to write an opinion piece, go and do your own research. Don't say it comes from me. You can actually go and look. All this information is available. I cannot speak of things that's not available publicly. I would not have been able to speak about the steam generator that was dropped if it wasn't front page news in News 24. And that's where it ends. I can only speak about what's in the public domain and try and give context to it because I believe it's justified, it's necessary. Where you have a headline that says that there's this huge crisis because of this event that we didn't cause. And it's almost like the journalists can't think that through because they know that little. So it's shocking that people report on things they actually know nothing about.
Yeah, absolutely. Then a second question, but you don't have to answer it now because I think you might go through that later. Okay. From a pragmatic point of view, given the escalation, obviously, I mean, it's been addressed many times, right? Not everybody can afford brute force solar, but if you could afford it, is that the best option?
I can't think of a better option that we have at this stage unless you have other options for energy such as gas. I am not a me personally think that many people are being ripped off with private solar installations.
Yeah.
So me personally, I won't put solar on my roof. What I would do is have a portable solar setup that I can travel with.
Yeah, that's interesting. So what I'm doing is more or less the same, is very pragmatic, very low key, keep the fridges running, don't just wire up your whole house, it's unnecessary. Yeah.
We need to change the way we live right now. People need to adjust. This is not going away. It's going to get worse. It cannot get better. And I can tell you, by them putting in all these renewables, it's not going to get better. In fact, people are going to start paying with interest rates going up on people's bonds, their car repayments, the electricity bills going up. Imagine our interest rate goes up to 20%, where it's been in my lifetime before, where you end up paying double on your bond. How are you going to pay for your electricity? You know, so I would advise people to adjust the way they live and make sure that they have the things that they feel comfortable with, that they're going to need, and make sure they can supply it. You know, I'm doing what is necessary. If I get load shed now, we can carry on with the things that's important to us. Without any solar panels. We have a tiny little solar panel we can use on the road to charge our phones if we need to. But if you have a car, you have a generator in your car, as long as you can put fuel into it. Don't forget that. A lot of people forget that that alternator can do quite a lot for you. A lot of people that camp understand that very well. Okay.
Right. Thanks, Dave.
Okay, Hardy, thanks. Okay, someone's iPad. I don't know how to pronounce that. Geliers. I'm not sure if that's English or Afrikaans. Okay, next, your hand is up. Okay, anyone else? I don't know, Geliers isn't talking right now. Okay, Jacques.
Thank you. Yes. Just to, Hardy's actually touched on this in the beginning when he spoke on your playlists. You know, like if you take, maybe I'm just stupid, but ek is tegnologies gestrem. Sometimes when I go and search for some of your videos, ek sukkel my gat af. So what I actually did is I made like links in certain categories, which I sent to myself on another number, just for fasting. Is it possible that, like Hardy's asked this, if you can maybe take all the power videos, Eskom videos, and just on your playlist, just put it there under one heading?
I have. Just find it.
Okay. I'll go.
You're just not looking properly. That's what I said right in the beginning. I've had a playlist that deals with Eskom and everything power related. It's there.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
It's the last playlist. If you look at all the playlists, it's the last one. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Hello.
Okay. Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
Yes, it's Elisheva. Unfortunately, that's how my iPad is named from.
Okay, that's fine, Elisheva.
Yeah. I have to ask you, why does one pay more with Eskom Direct?
You don't. In most cases, people pay less with Eskom Direct.
Oh, because I'm here in KZN now, you know, went on pension. And they say that here we're paying more with Eskom Direct and the farmers pay more for electricity. How's that?
Maybe on a farm, because of the access and availability, the serviceability of the servitudes, etc., to actually get the power to farms. So if you buy from Eskom within a neighborhood somewhere, you're always paying less than getting it from the council, because Eskom sells to the town council and they then sell to you and they make a profit.
Oh, I see. So, but
town councils are businesses too. It's actually criminal, but anyway.
Yeah, I thought so. This is Umshwati municipality, you know, and I stay in a very small little place called Koeberg. It's a German community here. And and they say that they pay more, they are charged more with Eskom Direct.
Yeah, but if they're getting it, many areas aren't serviced by municipalities. Eskom has to service them. So a lot of
yes, that's true. Yeah.
So a lot of the infrastructure Eskom has to put in for that makes it more difficult, literally.
Yes.
So
yes, that actually happens here. Yeah, I know that Eskom comes here. But yeah.
So that's a mission for Eskom. KZN in general for Eskom, it costs them more than they're making probably. Can you imagine running the power lines over that hilly landscape? I mean, sure.
Yeah.
You have to realistically think about it.
Yes. Yes. And you know what's interesting is the Indian community here, and most people around here use gas to a large. Yeah, and we found that we use, we use a 48 kilogram gas cylinder over basically 6 months. So that costs us now 1,600 Rand, something like that. And whereas if we would use the same amount of electricity, it would cost us that per month. Yes. That's how much cheaper gas is here.
All I can say is yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
I can tell you that so many people have gone over to gas. Electricity has been convenient. Those days are different now.
Yes.
So we're not in a place now where electricity is just a normal convenience. You put in a plug and you expect the power to come out of there. You actually need to know where it comes from now. The fact that the public is educated in that, or there's a need for it, is problematic in itself. Because it should just be something that you can consume, a service that the government provides via Eskom, which is supposed to be a non-profit organization. Eskom is footing the bill at the moment for renewables. It's ridiculous. Yeah. You know, a lot of the increases, because now the NERSA won't grant them the increase they actually need to counteract for that. Imagine you have renewable energy sources, okay, that provides 5% of Eskom generation, 5%, but they are a 80% component in Eskom's price increase.
And another thing is, which is very interesting, the Zulus here use a lot of gas-driven refrigerators and, and freezers even. And
well,
I was
many people
very
that do
surprised about that. Yeah, because here you can still get them.
Well, there's many people that cool things in many different ways. There's many people that are going back to older ways of doing things, even wet cooling. So yeah, yes. I don't want to go into the detail of how people now need to do certain things. That should be an entire session on its own, and that will probably take hours and hours. So I want to focus now on the crisis at hand, but thanks for talking about how people can change, how they can do something different to mitigate the problem that we are stuck with right now. I want to try and clear up any misgivings or misunderstandings that people have based on what they've seen out there. We only have 9 minutes left now. So is there anyone else that has a question? Do you have another question?
No, not myself. Thank you very much.
Okay, Jaco.
Hello, Des. I just want to ask, how likely is it that we can experience a national blackout?
Very unlikely, unless our generation capacity becomes really small and distributed. What I mean by that is the greatest risk to get all your generators to trip is if you have very few generators left. In other words, your total supply capacity is under 20,000 megawatts, for instance, and you lose one big unit. Instantaneously, your frequency drop will be massive. And if you don't load shed fast enough, you could bring the rest of the generators below 47.5 hertz. And because the grid needs to remain stable at 50 hertz, if you go below 47.5 hertz, all generators on the grid, they open their breakers to protect themselves. And then they will literally, black out the country. So we are not at that stage yet. And national control, if they handle things well, it'll never happen. You would literally need nothing to work. So what we could have are brownouts, as I've spoken of before, where you have entire regions or provinces affected. So the Eskom grid is divided into areas. And you could very easily lose an entire area. And that could happen more frequently as things progress. Hopefully it won't go there. And hopefully the sabotage of Eskom equipment will stop. But for that to happen, real action needs to be taken against people that are blatantly just plundering the country in general. You know, when the people in the country see the politicians in the country help themselves to everything, they follow suit, because that is the example that's been set for you. And that is why our president isn't really a good example right now. Yeah. When that happens and you don't have that moral person to look up to, that moral compass, then what you have is a country of people that become less and less civil. Because your government is not even civil. So it's a problem. And when I say government, I'm not talking ANC, I'm talking about everyone.
No, what? Yeah.
How can you be civil sitting there earning that fat salary and not fighting for the system to be changed? If you're not fighting for the system to be changed, all you're doing is you're a seat warmer at this stage. If we don't change the system that we find ourselves in now, we cannot assess Eskom. If Eskom is told tomorrow that you can do what you think is necessary, I can tell you things can be sorted out and stabilized fairly quickly. They're not getting what they need. And Andre is making that clear if you read between the lines. He's not beating around the bush anymore with what he's saying. For those that have eyes to see and ears to hear, he's telling you what the problem is, clearly. He's definitely not a political football anymore, except for what he is forced to drive within Eskom. And that is hugely problematic. If I was him, I would have resigned out of protest.
Yeah.
Thank
you very much for taking the time to clear these things up for us. Appreciate it.
Okay, thanks, Jaco. Okay, Brandon.
Des, I'm not sure if you've touched on this in other videos. Eskom has a lot of debt at the moment, and just coming on to that, I read something in like an article the other day about how much debt the Western Cape alone has, and you touched on them wanting to break away. And I thought, geez, well, that's insane. And that made me think about this question. Can Eskom ever have its debts written off, or can they be addressed or repaid? Like, how does that factor into everything you're speaking about?
Okay, that is being discussed right now. Eskom's debt not being written off, but government footing the bill. In other words, taxpayers. It's not that whether it can happen or would happen, it has to happen. We don't have a choice. Without Eskom, we don't have a country left. I can tell you unemphatically that no IPPs are going to take over what Eskom has built up. You know, Eskom has built a grid infrastructure that was the best in the world. Other countries learned from us how to transmit over long distances. We had to run power lines all the way from Gauteng to Cape Town with no generating capacity in between. The coal-fired power stations here had to have coal delivered either by train or via boat. So if you look at these remote areas that's so far away from the coal-fired power stations, we had to create an infrastructure second to none in this country. And we achieved it. We have an excellent grid infrastructure. We have an aging transformer, reactor. When I speak about reactors, I'm not talking nuclear reactors. I'm talking about at the substations where we have capacitive and reactive inductors to not just stabilize the grid, but actually manage the grid. And that infrastructure is old. It's very old. If you look at the mini substations all over the neighborhoods, that infrastructure is old. It served us so well. I mean, if people actually think about how well that has served us, those cables have been underground for how long now? They are being literally tested to the limit with load shedding, okay? With surges. I've seen voltage surges, and let me tell you something, it's incredible how voltages can swing when there's instability on the grid. We need a stable grid. I mean, you will toast any appliance plugged into a line that has those massive voltage swings. Imagine you're supposed to have 220 volts in your plug and it swings to 320. I've seen that. The insurance claims go through the roof. I mean, everything it touches is toast. You might be lucky to have a light bulb that survives it. So I don't know if I've answered your question sufficiently.
Yep, thanks, Des.
Okay, we're almost finished now. So, Elishiva, do you still, your hand is up? Do you have another question?
No, I don't. Sorry, yeah. I should actually put it down. Thank you.
No, that's fine. If there's anyone else with a question, then now is your last chance. But I think we've covered quite a lot. Okay, Jacques, Lorenz first.
Sorry, just to come back at the end that you said that we'll discuss the solutions for this.
Yes, Lorenz, yeah, I'll finish up with that now.
Thank you.
Okay.
How's it, Des? It's Lawrence.
Hi.
I'm
Hi,
just wondering,
Lawrence.
How's it going, man? Is there any move for nuclear at all in the country? Is there someone pushing for it? Is there a movement behind it? And how long would it take to how long would it take to build and get capacity going?
Okay, if we look at the latest stations that have been commissioned in Dubai, they did run over time. They thought they would be up and running in 4 years, but it took a bit longer than that. Many of the top Koeberg staff went to go and work there. And some of them are returning or have returned to Koeberg again. Very recently, a previous plant manager has returned to Koeberg. He used to be my ops manager. I know him very well, very capable person. And I believe that's a person that they are speaking about loosely in the media. And it's actually horrible, you know, when they do that. I think there's many people trying to promote nuclear. There's no political appetite for it, none. Not from the opposition parties that I've seen. Have you seen any of the opposition parties fighting for nuclear expansion?
No, not at all.
It doesn't serve their interests, you see. And if you look at the funders that they have, etc., you will see, if you look at the DA and what they are pushing, it's clear. The agenda is clear. When I had many meetings with Gordon McKay, who was the Shadow Minister of Energy in the Democratic Alliance. He left the DA eventually and went overseas. Gordon actually went to visit Koeberg, and when he saw how things operated there, I think it starts to change how you think. And so you get this gung-ho crazy factor in the media, and when you see the reality, you see the most stable, the most mature working culture and environment anywhere in the country. I'm not saying that there aren't niche environments where it might be similar, but certainly not where people are trained to that level. Nowhere will you find that. And the nuclear industry is international. In other words, you are connected with other power stations via WANO and IMPO, the World Association for Nuclear Operators, and the International Nuclear Plant Operators, that come out and peer review each other. Imagine governments did that. They had someone from another country come over, check how you do things, and then critique you. Can you imagine what a report would look like on our current government? So we do that in the nuclear industry. It's normal to do that. We encourage it. We're not forced to do it. Koeberg is also certified by IMPO, the only station outside the US that has IMPO certification for licensed operator training at that level. Koeberg's in the top quartile of nuclear power stations in the world, in the top 25%. That's not a joke. Okay, that's a serious achievement. So when people are trying to break that down outside of context, there's a massive agenda against nuclear in the country. And if there's no appetite to build nuclear, then all Koeberg can do is to extend the plant life for another 20 years. And even Andre de Ruyter supports that. He said that we have no option. We have to extend the plant life. We have the steam generators to replace on Unit 1, and we will have the steam generators to replace everything on Unit 2. So all of that is fine. To do that work is massive. It's a massive engineering undertaking. I don't think people understand how huge it is. It's never been done in Africa before. It's never been done at Koeberg before. It's been done at very few nuclear power stations around the world. And now that some countries realize they made a huge mistake shutting down their nuclear industries, to train those people back up again, to actually get a nuclear industry going again. Man, you have to keep the one you have going. You have to train people from there. I was a senior instructor. I trained people on their license course to license as reactor operators. It was an awesome privilege. I absolutely love doing it because you're working with awesome people that have been handpicked, that have been tested psychometrically to the kilt. I mean, these people have been tested for all sorts of things to make sure that they can do the job. and it works. The moment you bring politics into it, everything changes. And Eskom has been dealing with politics now for far too long. It's a killer. So nuclear has a huge vested interest against it. And Gordon McKay, back in the day, told me that they want Koeberg shut down. That they are anti-nuclear. This is a democratic alliance. When you ask them face to face, they might tell you something different. But if I have to tell you how many people have contacted me in the background to get me to turn against Koeberg and snitch against Koeberg, etc., trying their luck numerous times. And then I normally give them a workover and I explain to them technical facts, and then they never contact you again because it doesn't serve the agenda at all.
Yeah. Thanks, Dave. So the turnaround time on life extension would be what, 10, 15 years? How long would it take
to do the life extension will be done within the next 2 years.
Yeah, you see, that's worth getting that info out there viral.
No, 2 years it will be done, and Koeberg will run for another 20 years.
Yeah. Thanks, Des.
Okay, and that's important. You know, we've already replaced both reactor heads on Unit 1 and Unit 2. Unit 2 was done in the last outage. They won't say, that's awesome, what a great achievement. No, it's not a good narrative to put out there. You know, before, no one knew anything about Koeberg. No one cared. They just wanted power in their plugs. But everything has become politicized now, and it's a real pity. I can tell you, most of the people at Koeberg don't even have Facebook accounts, don't care about most social media. They enjoying their lives. And, you know, a lot of people will say, but the people in Eskom are being paid a fortune. These are highly skilled and trained specialists that could earn way more out there in the market. The Oak said, why do you think they went to Dubai, into the desert there? Because they earned 5 to 6 times more than they were earning at Koeberg. So people mustn't come and tell me that the Oaks are overpaid. That's not the case. Okay, Hardy.
Super quick practical question. If the grid goes over voltage, what is there anything easy, well, relatively easy that people can do to protect their stuff, like those green plugs with over voltage, or is that doesn't that really?
No, you need a surge, you need voltage stabilization equipment. So you get power packs that can do that. We use them in the sound and lighting industry, where you had voltage regulators, had large capacitor banks and coils in them to stabilize any surge that comes in, to make sure that you don't pop everything downstream. So they are available. You get very cheap items out of China. The good items, the German items, they'll cost you an arm and a leg. They're not cheap. You're going to spend 30 to 40K. But you won't get any of those voltage spikes, as I call them, coming through to mess up your equipment. And obviously that piece of gear has to arrest those spikes. It has to handle it for you. So just like you would have a UPS isn't designed to do that. It does do it to a degree, but any severe disturbance like that, it's not designed for that.
Yeah. So the short and long is there's not much people can do to protect their stuff.
Plug them out. Yeah. And the thing is, people have become so lazy that bending down and pulling out a plug is too much of a problem. That is what we've become. And we are living with the repercussions. In fact, consumerism makes you think, if I blow up my laptop, I might just as well go and get another one, you know?
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Then I have a new toy to play with. Okay, any other questions? Okay, Mark.
Hi, Des. Okay, so, you know, earlier you were saying all the guys leaving, going overseas and all that. I mean,
which guys are you talking about? I said the taxpayers.
Yeah, taxpayers leaving the country and that. And I mean, they're going to end up with the same problems over there. They're also going to have, they're having the same electricity problems and things over there, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I think those people are leaving for various reasons. There are stats on that. I haven't gone and studied all the stats, but there's certainly concern, and this is a valid concern, about a tax base leaving the country. That is very highly taxed. So they're going to places where they're not taxed as much. There's a lot of people at the moment working from South Africa, working for overseas companies remotely, where they pay tax in those countries. And now because you are physically here, South Africa expects you to pay tax here as well. It's just insane.
Yeah,
You're going to have no salary left. Do you understand? I mean, there's no rational sanity in what government is doing. When you have informal traders, a taxi industry, and many others not paying any tax whatsoever. And Eskom is sitting with this problem because government says to Eskom, all of this electricity you supply doesn't have to be paid for. Eskom doesn't make that decision. People forget this. So they're attacking Eskom without understanding context. And I can say Eskom broadly because the majority of people in Eskom isn't stealing and thieving. That's not the case. If that was the case, we would have been tickets already by now.
Just another quick one, yeah, with regards to the electricity. Now, all the countries are having problems all over. I mean, this is all part of the whole, I mean, they've all shut down their reactors, the UK and Germany and all that, and nuclear, and who knows what other crap's going on.
Except France. Except France.
Okay, well, they're waiting for a revolution. That's coming maybe. But yeah, I spoke to a French guy. He says, no, they're ready to rock and roll soon, one of these days. But now, so the whole Agenda 30 and the global elites, I mean, they shut down all these things. You can't tell me they didn't know. They're causing this on purpose, isn't it? To destroy and to break down.
Okay, I'm going to answer it and then I have to edit this out because we're going to put this into the public domain. I would normally just put it out for members. Okay, we know that there is a global plan to make governments collapse. How do you collapse governments? The other thing that I discussed in detail in my WOD's meetings is that fusion energy will be the savior of the future. The entire time during COVID, the ITER project was being implemented non-stop. It's a project where many countries are working together to create a tokamak fusion reactor in France. And these countries that a lot of people saying are trying to donor and moor each other are moors of friends around this project. That's why when you open your eyes and you actually see what's happening behind the scenes, instead of what you are being made to believe through mainstream media, it becomes very plain and simple to see. You create a massive energy crisis in the world and then you provide the answer. To be a part of that answer and receive that answer, you need to comply with a new set of rules.
Okay, so the fusion, what is this fusion thing? I didn't get that one.
Fusion reactors, where you don't use fission, it's a fusion reactor. So ITER, I-T-E-R, go and look it up. Look at that project. That is the energy of the future.
Yeah, they're doing this all on purpose. We understand all that. I mean, even the whole COVID thing, all that nonsense, all.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't want to talk about that now. This is about Eskom and rolling blackouts, okay?
Yeah. No, but so, I mean, it's part of the whole thing, isn't it? They're just trying to mess up the businesses, you know, all your small to medium businesses, break down everything. Our electricity over here is insane at the moment. I mean, it's crazy. Eh? I've got a guest house And there's 3 properties. We paid last month 55,000 Rand electricity, man. I mean, I never used to worry about electricity here, and we basically want to sell up and get out. I want to get off the grid and think, I can't handle this anymore because you're not getting the money in to pay this crap all the time. You know what I mean? And they like suck in. It's just ridiculous. It's insane, actually. So it's more than my bonds, man. You know, the electricity is more. I cut myself every month when I get.
Can I tell you that it's worse in other countries?
No, maybe, but I mean, we're not used to this. You know what I'm saying?
No, we aren't. We aren't, and it's not going to get better because the plan they're laying out now is going to make it worse, much worse.
Yeah,
not slightly worse, a lot worse.
Yeah, look, I want to get out of here and just go light fires and gas or whatever. Something.
Well, I tell people to get alternative energy, to have other energy sources, to become energy independent as much as you can. You know, that's not the rocket science.
But at the moment, I'm sitting with my finger up my arse here because we're stuck. I've got to get I've got a guest house. We got literally 22 rooms there. And we got people staying here long term kind of thing. We used to do more corporates and that.
Mark, can we talk about this after the recording is done? Because I can't put this out on YouTube.
Okay, sure. Okay, lekker. Anyway, look, I'd like to meet you one day when you come up to Joburg so we can chat a bit more.
Yeah, I've been there many times. I'll be there again this year. So, but remember, I want to finish up by talking about what we can do. And what we need to do is tell our friends, tell our family how our lives are going to be influenced. Go and study yourself and find out, even after you've watched the videos that I've put out on energy in a playlist that I have on Eskom and renewable energy, etc. Go and watch those videos. That'll give you pointers that you can go and take and research. Go and see the problems that people have faced with putting these renewable energy projects on the market and why many of them are failing. You see, the mainstream media won't tell you this. You need to find out why someone that is an absolute extreme lefty has made a movie against what is called green energy, and where he shows where the light bulbs went on and you realize it's all a farce. It's not true that the electric car is being charged with electricity from coal-fired power stations, which breaks down the whole narrative. So you need to understand for yourself and then tell other people about it. We need to change the system within which Eskom works, because if we can give Eskom room to do what they are supposed to do, we can stabilize things. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be independent power producers that can make a difference. They need to benefit the grid. If they cannot benefit a large-scale grid, we cannot build anything in this country. So what will happen? If Eskom continues and government doesn't help them to build new capacity and there's no stable capacity, large industries will cease to exist. This is part of the fourth industrial revolution. Smart city systems does not need heavy energy intensive power supply. They will literally use certain countries to do all the heavy manufacturing, and countries like South Africa, all that will matter is that you power equipment that monitor, track and trace people. And I will end there, that this is about controlling humanity, controlling your life, controlling your freedom. And you need to listen to the things that the political parties that you voted for, what they say about your freedom. Ask them questions about your freedom and what they will do in future to take your freedom away. And using Eskom as a tool, one of the biggest tools to remove your freedom to just put a plug in, get electricity supply, to communicate, etc. It's a very powerful tool in the hands of the global elites. And I want to end off there. So, thank you very much for joining in. I've discussed a lot. Go and watch this again if you joined later to get to the nitty-gritty detail I explained here. If I did not make it simple enough technically, I'm sorry. I tried my best. I can't go simpler than what I have. If you don't understand what a megawatt is, go and read up to find out what a megawatt is. Okay. And educate yourself, and then tell the other people around you about it. You can share those videos that I have put in that playlist. Maybe I should give you a link to that quickly. That might help actually. Because some people battle. There's playlist, click on playlist, go to the last. Okay, let me see, where is that? Okay, it's called Energy, Nuclear, Eskom, and Koeberg. There's 15 videos there. Okay, let me open that playlist quickly. So I'm going to give you the link to that now. Okay, where's the chat? I haven't been looking at the chat, people, sorry. So I don't know what people have been saying there. There's the link, and then you can go watch those videos and share it if you want to. Maybe use it to learn yourself. Go and do a bit of research. It helps for you to understand what you're dealing with yourself. So you don't have to believe me, but I am a real industry expert, actively involved in trying to stabilize the industry, the situation within Eskom, and I'll keep on doing that because the country needs that right now. And there's many other people like me doing the same thing. So that is really awesome. Don't think that Eskom hasn't made an effort a long time already to go to get people on board that know what they're doing. They have been doing this. And it takes time to stabilize things. No one can say, we have a year, people must go in and we're going to sort things out. It doesn't work that way. Anyone that says that, they don't understand technically what it takes to run a large organization such as Eskom, such a large power grid, so many generators synchronized together, keeping them stable, keeping them within the correct power factor, making sure that the frequency is at 50 hertz, that the load angle is correct. I can carry on and on. All of those things need to be meticulous. No politician can even begin to comprehend what I'm talking about now, because I'm not educated enough. Maybe we need to get more experts as our representatives, hopefully in a new system that we'll create in future. It's absolutely possible. It just depends on us. Okay. Thanks so much for joining me. And yeah, good night.